Seattle Seahawks Today is presented by Manscaped. You can get 20% off and free shipping on all their fantastic men's grooming products when you use promo code Seahawks at checkout at manscaped.com. Check them out today. Let's dive into some Russell Wilson conversation here. Is the drama over? Well, at least for the time being. We'll spend plenty of time on this one here to start things off. Now, the Seahawks dealt with a ton of Russell Wilson trade rumors over the offseason, to the frustration of many within the organization and, of course, the fans out there as well. Now, recently, Wilson said, and trying to be clear, he never requested a trade. He never wanted out. He was frustrated entering the offseason, and things got overblown. But yes, the list of teams that he would be amenable to being traded to was real. That was his list. Now, for those of you who have watched the show for a long time, you know I was never on board the Seahawks are actually going to trade Russell Wilson bandwagon. The timing did not make sense, which we'll get into more in depth here in a little bit. First, a quote from Wilson. Well, there was a lot of people. There was a whole thing saying I had requested a trade, and that's just not true. I didn't request a trade. I think everything kind of started from there, and then obviously tons of teams were calling. I didn't really want to go anywhere else. I wanted to play in Seattle. But if I had to go somewhere, those are the teams I would go to. Consider, I had a great conversation with Coach Carroll. I had a really great conversation with John, too, a.k.a. John Schneider, the GM. Coach Carroll and I spent a lot of time together one-on-one. We're here to do what we're meant to do, and that's to win. I'm excited. And I believe Russell when he says he never requested a trade. But the conversations were there. I think he was a bit unhappy with the way everything went down, and that will come into play later on next offseason. But for right now, it's very clear Wilson's not going anywhere. Now, what Seattle needs out of the organization, and importantly from Russ himself, is to look like early season Russell Wilson. They need MVP favorite frontrunner Russell Wilson for the first 7 games. They can't have last 9-game Russ again. Now, again, the stats are not all 100% on Russell Wilson. Sure, that's not how things work. But they need a better version of Russ this upcoming season. They need that early year Russ. Obviously, the 2020 stats overall are good, but they need more. They need a better, more consistent Russell Wilson, or else, well, things might get dicey next offseason. Now, do you guys want Russell Wilson to be a Seahawks player next year? I think the answer is yes. And if you agree with that, because I want him to be, like the video. If you want Wilson to be a Seahawk next season, like the video right now. Now, when we went back, you can roll back the tape, look at what we said earlier this offseason. This year, that never made sense for a Russell Wilson trade. Next year, however, if things are bad, and that is, I think, a big if right now, well, the trade rumors will return. Russell Wilson wants to win. He wants to win more Super Bowls, wants to put up great production, wants to be a Hall of Fame caliber player and get in the conversation of best quarterbacks ever. Seattle wants to win games too. But if that doesn't happen this season, well, next year, things become a little bit more movable in terms of his contract. And I think Wilson's comments and the off-season issues all stemmed from the frustrations that came about. Here's what Wilson had to say. I obviously love Seattle. I love playing here. I've had a great career here so far. I've always wanted to play here for my full career, obviously. I think there were some unfortunate frustrations after the season. Obviously, you want to win it all and do everything you can. I think everybody on our team does. You want to win, and I think, unfortunately, it got a little blown out of proportion a little bit. Wilson wants to win. I think that is very clear. Seattle wants to win. But if the two sides don't agree with how best to win games, and if they don't win games next year, I think that could be the situation in which a trade becomes more plausible. I never bought it this year. If they get bounced early again next year, that conversation begins to change. Now, as of right this second, Seattle could save $19 million by trading Russell Wilson, but that's a post-June 1st trade. No one's going to take him on right now from a cap perspective. It's way too complicated, convoluted. It never made sense right now. Next season, and this is not even factoring in a potential June 1st trade, just simply next year, next offseason, $24 million in savings. If Russell Wilson remains frustrated again, that's when a trade could start to make some more sense. I'm not fully buying it because Pete Carroll's old. He wants to win right now. But I do think this is very clear. This season, this year for Seattle is critical. If the Seahawks struggle, which historically speaking, they're not going to because they've always been good with Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll. But if the frustrations appear again, that's when a trade might start to make a little bit more sense for Seattle. So what is the percent chance that you believe the Seahawks win the NFC? Get your votes in for me in the comments section. If they don't make a run, I think the rumors will return. So get your votes in for me right now. Time now for our weekly KJ Wright update, because they're always here, right? His teammate, or at least his former teammate, I should say, Bobby Wagner, has made it pretty clear once again. He wants KJ Wright back, and that shouldn't be a huge surprise necessarily. But there are some issues here between KJ Wright and Seattle. Look, Wright's coming off a great season, and I would argue very surprisingly so, his market has not been particularly great. And I think money is a potential issue here for Seattle and Wright, both in terms of what he could make this year and what he might make long term, because Jordan Brooks is a factor now going forward. Here's what Wagner had to say, though. Quote, "I hope we're able to figure that out and work it out, but it would definitely be different. Not having him. Having a guy like that as a playmaker, someone that's really, really productive, especially these last 2 years, he's been very, very productive. It'll be different, but this is a business, and we'll figure out what we need to do. I'm very, very confident in our group that we have. There's definitely a door open. I mean, I feel like as long as I'm here, I would like to say the door is open." And Wagner's right when he says Wright was very productive. Almost confused myself there. 11 tackles for loss, 10 pass breakups, a ton of tackles. KJ Wright played awesome in 2020. And I was under the assumption, and I am clearly wrong on this now, that KJ Wright was going to find a buyer for his services very quickly. However, that has not been the case. In reality, things have not emerged for KJ Wright. The market's been very soft. And in Seattle, meanwhile, I don't think they anticipated Wright having a poor market. Because when they drafted Jordan Brooks, their mindset was, okay, this is now our number 2 linebacker, along with Bobby Wagner. We'll let KJ Wright leave. He'll be too expensive for us anyway. Wright's not that expensive now. At least that would be my assumption with the way the lack of a market has emerged for him. So now you're trying to juggle, well, we could bring him back, but the cost is weird. You know, he's looking for more money, more playing time than what we can offer him necessarily. So I do still think there is the possibility of a Wright-Seattle reunion. I think part of it comes down to how Jordan Brooks looks, how Darrell Taylor looks in that new strong side linebacker role for him. If one of those guys struggle and the need is there, maybe Wright could return. Otherwise, I do still think he ends up playing elsewhere in 2021. Ironically, some other NFC teams make some sense. The Rams are not great at linebacker. Philadelphia has maybe the worst linebacking core in the NFL. The Giants have one good player in Blake Martinez and not much else at the position. The Saints did draft Pete Werner in round 2, but they could use some added depth and more experienced options there. But for a couple of those teams, namely the Saints and the Rams, money's tight. The market is not going to be what KJ Wright, I would argue, deserves and what he's going to find in the end, unless there's a weird Logan Ryan situation set to develop there. So do you want KJ Wright back? Get your votes in for me. Type A for yes, you want to bring him back, or type in B for no, you don't. Today's show, as I mentioned, is made possible by our friends over at Manscaped. 20% off and free shipping when you use the promo code you see right there on your screen. That is Seahawks at manscaped.com. Apply it at checkout, by the way. You can get the brand new Lawnmower 4.0. It's the #1 men's grooming tool out there. New and improved, better charger, better handle, different head lengths, so you can adjust just how tight you want to trim it up down there. Check out all of their products, including but not limited to the Lawnmower 4.0, and get that 20% off and free shipping when you use promo code Seahawks at manscaped.com. And yes, that link and promo code will be in both the comment section and in the description. Let's talk trade now. How about going after Akiem Hicks, pitched as a target by ESPN 710 in Seattle, excuse me. And I like part of the idea here. I do think Hicks would help solidify the defensive line, which right now is a bit of a question mark. There's some young talent there, but a bit unproven. The number one problem, though, I actually have with this potential move is the salary for Akiem Hicks. $10.4 million. Now, you could find a way to give him what they offered Jarran Reed, which was a fake extension where they just add fake years on the back end, bring that cap hit down. You could extend other guys, so we'll get to more in depth here. But that base salary, as it sits on its own, is really not one Seattle wants to bring on. Now, they do need defensive tackle help, all right? I'm excited to see if LJ Collier and or Rasheem Green get to be more full-time defensive tackles, or if they hang out more in the 5-tech, 3-tech hybrid role where there are enough 5-tech options. I'm a big Poona Ford fan. Love him, but that's only one of the two guys you're going to try and play. Brian Monet is a nice backup run stopper. Al Woods is, more of a DT 3 or 4 there. Is Robert Nkemdiche a piece? Probably not. Now, Akiem Hicks in 2020, the flashes were there. I mean, an obscene number of quarterback hits, but the pure production, that just the 7 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, not worth $10.4 million. The quarterback hits, if that develops more into more consistent sacks, that's a different conversation there. So what do you guys think? Do you want to trade for Akiem Hicks? Get your votes in for me. Type in Y for yes or type in N for no. Now, the way that ESPN 710 Seattle pitched this move was to extend Jamal Adams, which for the record, I am on board with. I do wonder if that's actually going to take care of it. If you're trying to save, let's say, $6 million, that's doable for Jamal Adams, but the main way you would accomplish that is to take his base salary, make it very, very low, and make it a massive signing bonus, which would guarantee him more time with the lifetime of his contract. Probably have to guarantee year 2 of his salary as well, maybe year 3. It gets a little bit tricky for a player who's going to command a big-time deal. You can extend Adams and save money. I don't know if you'd be able or want to save the level of money that you would need to free up Akiem Hicks. I think the more likely extension option or restructuring option would be Russell Wilson or Bobby Wagner. Seattle did not do that, though, which means that his current contract, I think Akiem Hicks is a little bit too pricey unless Seattle goes away from what they've done this offseason.